What's up, everyone? Today we have an awesome guest, sports psychologist, Greg Chertok. Greg is the head player development consultant for Taylor Sports Psychology. He coaches high school, NCAA champions, Super Bowl, and Olympic athletes. Greg, great to have you here.
Man, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Of course. So Greg majored in psychology as an undergrad at Tufts University, where he became a star walk-on shortstop for the baseball team. And he earned ESPN, the magazine Academic Regional All-American, and became a New England College All-Star. So I'm excited to dive in with you, Greg, and answer some questions about walking on.
Sure. I'm ready. I'm here.
So my first question, so can you describe the experience as a high school athlete and how you were able to walk on at Tufts University?
Yeah, I was always passionate about baseball. I think in high school I was really passionate about human behavior and development. And when I kind of realized that psychology and sport could be married together, that was really exciting as a potential career field. But when I was in high school, I had pretty realistic expectations about my baseball career. I wasn't aspiring to play professionally. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to play in college. Although I knew that I wanted to attend a school that was strong scholastically and had the potential for me to possibly play. So I immersed myself in baseball in high school, and our high school team actually won the state championship. So we had a lot of success. And throughout the process of high school, as some of my other teammates were committing to certain schools and were dabbling in the Division I and III recruiting process, I took a very pediatric stab at it. In other words, and I know it's much different now because a lot of my clients will make these high quality videos, and the process is pretty comprehensive. Whenever my name was in the paper, I would manually just cut out the clippings and send them by snail mail to the Tufts baseball head coach, which I'm kind of now visualizing him receiving them and shrugging his shoulders and kind of throwing them in the ashtray or something. But at the time, that was the extent of my attempts at being recognized collegially.
Okay, yeah, no, that's but you finally made your way, and you earned your position. So like the moment you stepped onto campus, what were the steps you had to take to earn your spot on the team?
Yeah, so there was fall ball, which started just a couple of weeks after coming on campus, and I happened to be so the head coach didn't completely discard my clippings because I think he strategically paired me with one of the RAs who was a junior on the team at the time, on the baseball team, and right next door in my across the hall was another hopeful freshman baseball player. So I felt like I had like some kind of a cohort around me, and I think that when I entered the field as somebody who was in a walk-on position. In other words, I had very little expectations from other people, which has always played a role in the pressure that I felt. I think, Jimmy, I had so much trouble managing my own mental game, which probably triggered an interest in me getting into this field. But whenever I sensed that a lot of people were expecting big things from me, or I would hear, oh, well, there's Greg. Watch what he's about to do. This kid's a beast. I would immediately feel the heaviness of having to live up to that. And so walking in as a literal walk-on with no one knowing who I was, the baseball bulletin at the time, the Tufts baseball publication came out of players to watch, young players to watch. And I wasn't on the list. There were a couple dozen players on the list, all of whom were recruited, and I wasn't there. And so I think a part of me was like chip on the shoulder-ish kind of reacted. Right. But another part was like, this is no pressure. I mean, I have nothing to lose here. So I walked onto the field and felt inspired to just kind of give my best, even though I felt that familiar pressure. It was a lighter feeling, and so I had a pretty solid fall. Ended up playing on the on the JV team. The Tufts program had a JV team at the time, and I played so well that later on in the year I got bumped up to the varsity team.
That's awesome. That's, but when you, like you said, with the psychology minor and trying to manage your own mental game at the time, and now you're able to coach high school and NCAA champions. So that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
awesome.
I think that in most any field, there's value in being able to say that you've been there before, to have the kind of empathy. Listen, if you're a heart surgeon, that doesn't require you to ever have had heart surgery in your life. But if you're in an interactional field, like teaching or coaching or mentoring or counseling, it's helpful for you to have been an athlete, especially in the sports psychology field, to have been an athlete, to know the trials and tribulations athletically, what's involved, and to have had a mentor or coach that has inspired you or has been a positive influence in the past. So I think that's given me a leg. It's acted advantageously for me when I'm working with an athlete now who is experiencing a lot of sadness or anxiety or anger or confusion about their sport, or in preparation for a tournament. I can say with authenticity, I know what that feels like. I've been there before. So that's always helpful in me relating to the athletes I'm working with.
Absolutely. Now I know. So yourself walking on. How is that experience like with your teammates?
Yeah, I think that there were certainly some of my teammates who were. So what ended up happening in my senior year, I was the sole senior captain on the team, a team filled with senior recruited players, and then me with the lone walk-on as the captain. And I think a lot of my players, because I didn't present myself in an arrogant or entitled way, I think a lot of my teammates were happy for me. It was kind of like the proverbial rags to riches type story. But I imagine, and they never vocalized this to me, but I imagine some of them who were on that pedestal, who were players to watch, and they were kind of looking down at me, and then they were watching me kind of rise above. I imagine, just psychologically speaking, some people aren't all that comfortable with that. Some people, of seeing somebody below them kind of rise up, just in front of their very eyes. So I'm predicting that not everyone loved my ascent, but I guess at the end of the day, you can really control what you can control, and I can't control other people.
Absolutely. That's a very solid point. So if you could look back, is there anything that you change or differently?
It's hard to conceptualize what I would do in the preparation process, because I think at the time, I mean, this is like, it ages me so much when I say, like, before there were like really cell phones, but I didn't own a cell phone at the time, and our relationship with the internet isn't what it is today. That I think I maximized what I was capable of doing. In fact, I work with a lot of athletes now who are in the recruiting process, who are timid to kind of put themselves out there. They're afraid of maybe giving the wrong message, or putting out the wrong video, or sounding infantile or immature in front of a coach. And so they opt to just kind of lay low and not put themselves out there. And I know what coaches want. Well, the least thing that coaches want is like for mom or dad to act as your representative and say, "Oh, here's my son. You should look at him." And then the second least thing that coaches want is silence or no attempt at connections. So I think getting out of our own way and not being afraid to put ourselves out there and to promote ourselves, because at the end of the day, we have to be our own advocate. And I think I did a good job of that, of advocating for myself. So I would definitely continue with that. And if I had access to the different electronic means that I do now, I think I would want to maximize those too.
Right. No, that's a great answer. So being up in Massachusetts as a 22, 23-year-old kid, and majoring in psychology, and now all of a sudden with this new walk on and playing baseball definitely makes your schedule more busy. What would you say some of the struggles you had mentally or emotionally transitioning to that new experience?
So what I will say, actually, Jimmy, before I even address the struggles, was that, you know, when I'm looking back at my academic career through college, my GPA was always higher in season, which almost sounds paradoxical. It sounds like, well,
Right.
during the season, I should be flooded with baseball to-dos, and so therefore my studies kind of fall to the wayside. But what ended up happening was that, you know, I was so packed to the brim with baseball stuff that I had no choice but to be super organized with my time, as opposed to in the fall when I had more free time. And we all know that when we have more free time, we don't tend to use it
Yeah,
maximally.
that's
Um,
very true.
so you know, with the limited time I had to be very disciplined and organized with how I used that time. So I think I used my time wisely. And then after the season, I think I looked back and said, "Holy crap! Like that was a whirlwind. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I want to do that again." And the next spring came around, and I was able to do it again. But I would say that being able to ahead of time, just like, you know, if I'm going to punch you in the stomach, it would be smart of you to, in preparation for the punch, to kind of brace your abdominal muscles, like to almost harden yourself for what's to come. And I think for a lot of athletes who come into college sports almost have this, like, I got this mentality. Like, I did it in high school, it shouldn't be that bad. And then they're absolutely overwhelmed with the balance it requires. And especially at the D1 level where I wasn't, there's a lot more meetings and a lot more training and a lot more hours put in and day out. So I think preparing yourself, whether that's mentally or physically, for what's to come, means, like, right as the season starts and preferably beforehand, you have your schedule in place. You know when you're going to be at the library. You know when you're going to be getting your work done. You know when you want to go out and when not, because if you're leaving it up to chance or up to, like, the whimsical feeling of the moment, like, I guess I'll study or I guess I'll go out, it oftentimes doesn't lead to a lot of effective living. So I know for me, I would say that, and I didn't always do a good job of this, that kind of planning out my schedule, whether it's like the day before, the week before, the month before, was critical in my success, and a lot of success that my athletes have.
So you would say, like, you were more structured in season. So, like, you had your plan, you kind of just worked the plan.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was definitely more structured, and but there were a lot of teammates of mine who weren't, and it's not that they weren't capable of it. They just, I think, opted not to do so. For me, it almost felt more natural. But I think everyone is capable of like just taking a step back and thinking, how do I want to spend my time? What items are most deserving of my attention during the week? What are my golf balls, almost? You know, if you were to think of, like, the big things in your life as the golf balls, and then, like, the little things as the pebbles and the sand and the water. There are certain golf balls, like my studies or baseball training or church or family or whatever belongs on your list. I mean, I think everyone is idiosyncratic. Everyone is going to have a different list. But if we're finding that we're dedicating most of our time to the sand, to the water, like, and I think for a lot of us, that's like shopping or screen time or video games or I don't know, masturbation. Who knows? I mean, there could be a lot of things on that list that maybe occupy our attention, that when we're taking a step back and looking at, you know, what's most important, it doesn't belong on that list. So I think without going through formally that process, I think I did a good job of taking care of my golf balls first.
Okay, you know, that's good. So I know, like you said, you know, because of your sport, you wanted to like look into psychology. So coming out of high school, what were you planning on majoring?
Yeah. Well, first off, I should say that was an inappropriate comment I made before. But you know, I'm giving examples. But I'm sure other people can relate to what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So high school, I would say, from very early on in high school, I made the decision that psychology was an attractive field. In fact, since I was 14, 15, I decided it was something I wanted to pursue. And then when I was maybe 16 and I realized that sports psychology was an actual existing field, then I got even more excited to pursue it. And I think what I did in high school was when I learned it was a field, I reached out to some sports psychology professionals in the area, and regionally and nationally, just to kind of pick their brains, see where they came from. And a few of them would kind of ignore my request just because they must have seen me as a young, hopeful kid, maybe looking for an internship. I don't know, but others would welcome me in and give me really good guidance and support. And that was really effective for me. So I think even now as a professional, when I get those young contacts or, trying to just connect with me and reach out, I try to give them a lot of time. So I think and this kind of goes back to that first theme, being willing to put yourself out there. I think if you have an interest or a passion, it's not sufficient to just kind of check out online and watch a couple of YouTube videos, but picking up some books, reaching out to professionals in the field who've done it and been there, putting yourself out there, being vulnerable and exposing yourself as this hopeful, aspiring professional in the field. How can you give me some help? What's some guidance? That goes a long way.
Yeah, that's important, especially doing your research and committing to that. So looking back, what do you think contributed to your success as being a walk-on?
I think that I had a passion for the game. I think I had a lot of teammates, and I work with a lot of people now who almost feel trapped in their sport, almost like it's a commitment or a job, almost like they have to do it for the college scholarship. That becomes a job when you literally have money on the line. It kind of sucks out the intrinsic motivation of what you're doing, and for a lot of people, I'm just doing it for the scholarship. I'm doing it for the starting spot. I didn't feel like I had to do it. I feel like I wanted to do it because as a walk-on, I'm voluntarily walking on. As a recruit, there's some part in the process where it's not voluntary anymore. I mean, you're now committed. I mean, think of a commitment sounds kind of scary. It sounds long-term. So I felt like on my own volition, autonomously, like my own decision, I kind of walked on and made the process lighter for me. So I think, throughout my career, I was this walk-on who was surprising people, and that I almost felt like that was an easier process for me than being a committed recruit who had these high expectations. So I think maintaining my passion for the game was really, really important. I definitely tried surrounding myself with similar kind of people who were intellectual people, who were warm and supportive and motivating, and who appreciated the game of baseball like I did. So finding a community like that at school was really important.
That's a great idea, especially surround yourself with people that are have the same passions and similar interests, and you can also push each other. Greg, right. So we actually this would actually be a good follow-up question to that, but we do end every interview with a few fun questions. So who is your role model growing up, and did that role model change?
That's a good question. I think that, I mean, my role model when I was 8 was Joe Ruback, who was a baseball coach who must have been in his late 20s at the time, because he was funny and had long flowing hair, and he could hit the ball a country mile at my baseball camp. And then my role model turned into Ray Ordonez, who was the Mets shortstop in the 1990s, who couldn't hit at all. He was like a perennial 238 hitter, but my God, he had an unbelievable glove, and I loved watching him play. I would definitely consider my parents as role models in that process. Just growing up, I think that a singular role model, that's a very attractive idea. Like having one exclusive person who's kind of guiding you. But I think if you were to ask a lot of high performers, they would say there was a whole team. In fact, I remember talking to an old NFL punter who was in the league for 20 years. And he said that he thought of his confidence or his career like a keychain. And the more people on his chain, the heavier the keychain itself, the more keys that were there, the more supported he felt, the more inspired he felt. And I think having people who would, whether it was a massage therapist or a religious leader or a sports psychologist or teammates or coaches, people who he felt he could look up to or he was connected with, just made him feel a bit more secure in himself. So I think I don't think my memory is all that precise to recall like in specific moments of my life. And I'm sure I'm failing to mention a couple who were big when I was 13 or 18 or 24. But I mean, my role models as a young professional were successful professionals. But when I was 18, that wasn't part of my reality. And so it was more aligned with baseball role models or my parents. So I think they're constantly, like you said, it's constantly changing. It's very fluid. And there should be multiple people that are kind of guiding the ship for you.
No, absolutely. I was curious about that. That was a great answer.
It was.
So tell me, going back to your walk on days at Tufts, I'm sure you've had a lot of team team memories. Tell me about your funniest team memory.
Funniest team member.
PG.
At the time, this wasn't all that funny. No, it was not all that funny at all. But it kind of it's like emblematic of the newcomer kind of getting and I'm using hazed in like a very light way, like hazed into the family. I was a freshman in one of the juniors at the time, who was one of the leaders on the team. He came up to me and he said, "Hey, Chertok, you want a Gatorade?" And this was like the first time he was really interacting with me. So I thought, I'm one of the guys now. So I said, "Sure." And it looked like it hadn't been opened. And it was after a hot practice. So I opened it and I started guzzling. And it's some form of very hard alcohol that he so I guess I'm not even sure why that came up first, because it wasn't my favorite. But in some weird contorted way, that was like his way of welcoming into the family, even though the way he was doing it wouldn't be the way that I would do it. But I kind of felt like one of the guys after that moment.
Right. I'm sure. So, like, I mean, did that tradition continue, or?
No, oh God, no. I mean, it didn't continue with me, and I maybe it was just like he was just kind of doing it to me, like targeting me for whatever reason. Maybe I was just so likable or attractive. I don't know. He probably had some reason.
Of course. Greg, this has been a great talk. I really appreciate your time. Thank you again.
Man, it was a lot of fun, and I'm happy to do it again.
Of course, we have to continue. Maybe do a little sports psychologist talk, and some of the athletes and all those experiences. I'm sure you have a lot of great lessons that you can help share.
Happy to, man.
Thank you, Greg.
All right.